The woman lifted her skirt under the table and scribbled a hotel room number in the corner of her notebook. She hoped Chris would understand her message. Chris, however, was worried he might be misinterpreting her intentions. After class, he deliberately stayed behind. Under the pretense of asking a question, he approached Ellie and intentionally brushed against her. When Chris realized Ellie did not resist, he finally felt certain about her feelings. Pretending to take him to fetch some tools, Ellie led him away. Chris accidentally broke a handrail, and as Ellie bent down to help, their supervisor happened to walk by. The two hurriedly hid. That secret moment brought them even closer, and soon after, they shared their first kiss. Later, Ellie took Chris to the attic. In the dim light, Chris experienced intimacy for the first time. When he returned, he wiped away the trace of lipstick from the corner of his lips. Ellie noticed and gave him a knowing smile. At the cinema where Chris worked, he once ran into his brother, who was serving in the military. Seeing his brother in uniform stirred in him a longing to grow up. Meanwhile, his attention toward Ellie deepened. He would watch her quietly, sometimes even sniff the chair she had just sat on when no one was around. Chris began visiting Ellie's apartment. Under the pretext of tutoring, their behavior gradually grew bolder. Ellie's husband, Frank, a salesman weighed down by stress, found his only solace in alcohol. Chris felt deeply guilty toward Frank. Frank had often consoled him when he was down and even shared lighthearted stories from work. Under Frank's influence, Chris developed a love for music. One day, Chris clashed with his own father over music, a confrontation that marked his first act of rebellion against him. When Frank discovered Chris wearing his wife's nightgown, he realized their affair. Yet, instead of anger, he confessed his own guilt. He had once been caught cheating by Ellie. At Chris's urging, Frank tried to quit drinking, but after a failed investment, Frank relapsed into alcoholism. As time passed, Chris began reflecting on his relationship with Ellie. He realized what a healthy romance should be and started to change. Then came devastating news: his brother had been killed in combat. Grief pushed Chris to end the twisted relationship, but Ellie refused to let go. In desperation, she even smashed a bottle and threatened him. To his shock, she later accused Chris of harassment before their supervisor. Panicked, Chris rushed to find proof, only to discover that Ellie had already destroyed the notebook evidence. When he turned to Frank for help, Frank only wanted to preserve his marriage, leaving Chris utterly disillusioned. At the funeral service, the atmosphere was heavy with sorrow. On the train home, his mother did not scold him. Instead, she reflected on whether she herself bore some responsibility. Chris also saw his father's vulnerable side for the first time. In that moment, he truly felt he had grown up. Chris walked into the auditorium, made a rude gesture toward Ellie, then turned and left. At last, he understood. Real maturity meant learning to take responsibility, not clinging to childish fantasies.